Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Translation. Sati said, "My dear Lord Shiva, your father-in-law is now executing great sacrifices, and all the demigods, having been invited by him, are going there. If you desire, we may also go." Purport. Sati knew of the tension between her father and her husband, but still she expressed to her husband, Lord Shiva, that since such sacrifices were going on at her father's house and so many demigods were going, she also desired to go. But she could not express her willingness directly, and so she told her husband that if he desired to go, then she could also accompany him. In other words, she submitted her desire very politely to her husband. Daksha Yajna is still a synonym in Indian languages for a major quarrel. Do they say in Tamil, Daksha Yajna? No, it's out of date because people don't know, they lost their religious culture. But otherwise, to say Daksha Yajna means a big, kya bolte hai Hindi mein, hangama, a riot, something like that. It was a religious performance. People say religion is the cause of all the problems in the world. No, that's not the fact. It's not the fact that religion is the cause, but its misunderstanding of religion can actually cause more problems than that's why some people say there should be just no religion, because misapplication of religion can cause so many problems. This John Lennon, famous philosopher of the modern era, or at least he thought he was a philosopher. Many people thought. One of his most famous songs, Imagine. You know the song? So, he was describing a world. Imagine a world in which all the people, they liked each other and there are no problems. And one of the lines was, and no religion too. It's like his idea of a perfect world, no religion. So it was a religious performance, and when we think of religion, we generally think of something pleasing, but the ultimate result was not pleasing. Who is to blame? Well, here this word comes up in this narration about the word bhaga comes up. There's also bhaga, who's a demigod, who's involved in this. But bhaga, the word comes up that at the sacrifice, the demigods come to accept their shares of what's being offered. So who's a different kind of bhaga, blame. Who is to blame? Well, a major share of the blame goes to Daksha because of his attitude. But part of the blame we can also find right here in Sati's attitude. That she wants to go as a social occasion. She's not, and actually all of them, all the demigods, they're not interested in what is the actual essence of religion. For the sacrificial performance for them it's more of a social event, in which Daksha, for him it was a matter of prestige. He felt embarrassed by his son-in-law because he said, here we are, we're all going demigods, all dressed up in our best clothes, and you can imagine the demigods' best clothes. And Sri Aishvarya Prajapsava, this is the term used in the Bhagavatam for what materialistic people are attached to. They like to, Prabhupada described this. He often quoted this term, Sri Aishvarya Prajapsava. People like to show their beautiful wives, and it's not, to have a beautiful wife is not just for directly enjoying, but to show off also. So you dress her up, take her out to some social function. It increases your prestige to have a beautiful wife, nicely dressed in many ornaments. So Stri, woman, Aishvarya, opulence, and then you have to show all your family members. This is material life. This is human civilization based on this. Just show how, that's what they consider civilization. If you have very sophisticated society, means that we'll have beautiful women and very strong and athletic men, very expert men. Daksha means expert. And opulence, and produce children. So their whole idea of religion was no idea of what the real purpose is. And Lord Shiva, the Daksha was thinking that, well, if he comes, we're all dressed up nicely, and then he's going to turn up just like a naked beggar with all covered in ashes and snakes on his body. And what an embarrassment. I got this son-in-law, what an embarrassment to me. You got your hands on your mouth, you should go and wash your hand. So he didn't recognize the position of Lord Shiva. He took him to be a ragamuffin. And Lord Shiva himself, he wasn't that much disturbed by not being invited, because he's not that much interested in all this kind of thing anyway. Which is why he is sitting under a tree without even a house, even though personally he can create any number of beautiful palaces, and with his wife being the material energy herself, he can have any amount of opulence, but he's simply not interested in any of this. And not particularly interested in the company of the demigods either. He's in a different platform. He's on the Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam. He's on the Shuddha Sattva platform. Of course, sometimes we say he's in the mode of ignorance. Just like milk touched by the yogurt culture becomes yogurt. But in his existential position, Lord Shiva, as a pure devotee of Krishna, he's simply interested in Krishna, or particularly Sankarsha. He's meditating on Sankarsha. So he's not very interested in all these things. Daksha, he felt some serious envy towards Lord Shiva, but in Sati's attitude also, that she wants to go and we'll all enjoy each other, we'll be nice, it's also her attitude, the idea that we shall enjoy this performance all together with our family and our friends. So the seed of disaster is there in everyone's attitude, not only Daksha. That's why we say, Samsara davanala lidhaloka, tranaya karanya ghana ghana. We don't have to say the first line. The second line, it's the forest fire of material existence. It doesn't actually say forest fire, it just says anala, fire, the fire of material existence. But that is extinguished by the cloud, so the cloud of Krishna's mercy, which comes in the form of the spiritual master. But that this is particularly applicable to a forest fire, which cannot be put out by any ordinary fire brigade. Another feature of the forest fire is you can't say how it comes about. It just seems to be by chance, by the rubbing of bamboos together. So, if we try to find a cause, what is the ultimate cause? It's so complex. Of course, in law, the blame is ascribed to someone. If something wrong is done, and someone should be punished for that, for a wrong deed. But actually everyone is guilty. Just like Prabhupada, he often told the story of the man who pleaded crazy to get free to be pardoned of a crime. And the psychiatrist who was called to testify, do you think he's crazy? He said, yes, this accused man is crazy, but then everyone's crazy. So, but in the same way, the judge is sitting to judge when actually everyone's guilty. Everyone's guilty inasmuch as everyone is envious of Krishna. So some people express that envy in a manner which requires punishment by law, and others express it in a way which they may not be punished by law. They may be very good, pious people like the demigods, but they are punished by repeated birth and death. They're punished by, for instance, having to go to the heavenly planets. That's also a punishment. That's called reward. But it's also a punishment because it increases one's term of forgetting Krishna. The whole material world is a prison. So we say you're getting rewarded. Well, what is that reward? The prisoner gets transferred from an ordinary cell to an air-conditioned cell. What's the reward? It seems like a reward. Oh, this is very good. I'm going to a better situation. But the whole situation is one of punishment, and just like the root cause of all this Daksha Yajna, we could say the main cause is Daksha's envy. But then everyone is envious. So this kind of thing happens from time to time. You'll find the political analysts saying, well, it's a dangerous situation in this part of the world, there may be a war. And someone will ask, do you think there'll be another major world war? Sometimes people are saying, of course there will be. You don't need to be an astrologer or a political analyst. There must be, because people are envious of each other. And the whole history, if you study the history of the world, at least as they teach it nowadays, which means over the last few thousand years, as soon as there's any what they call civilization, then there's war. That's all. The whole of history is just punctuated this war to that war. That's all. One war after another. And then someone's trying to get domination over someone else, and then they throw them out, and then if you see the history of Europe, that at some point that just to take one area, one time, actually Lithuania was dominating. Can you imagine? It doesn't seem possible now. Greece was dominating. Doesn't seem possible now. Iraq, which is now being thumped by the bombs of Mr. Bush, that was also a very powerful empire. It was the seat of a powerful empire at one point in time. So, like that, sometimes there's a great one area, they're greatly powerful, and then they become just nothing. Egypt was also very, very powerful, and so now they're nothing. So this is material life. In the Daksha Yajna is the source of. We find the clue there. What are all the problems of the material world? Recently I was in Mumbai, and a devotee was giving class from this same section of Bhagavatam, a little bit further on, and he said, now it's all peacefuled up, everything's settled, everything finished peacefully. I gave class a few days later and said, no, that's not the right purport. Nothing ever finishes peacefully. That's just an illusion. It may seem to be peaceful, but then again, the forest fire will burn again. It's not, they all lived happily ever after. This is, in English, fairy tales. The standard beginning is once upon a time, and the standard ending is they all lived happily ever after. And it's all fairy tales, because no one ever lives happily ever after. neither happily nor ever after. It's anityam asukam lokam. But this is the stuff of fairy tales. People like to think like this. So even the whole sacrifice is being performed for the sake of living happily ever after. They're all in fairy tale land. They're all in Maya. Lord Shiva is better situated. He's aloof from all these things. So this is the Daksha Yajna. Better to avoid Daksha Yajnas. Not to get involved. This Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says we should avoid, I can't remember exactly, I don't know the Bengali, I can't remember it. Ugnornis, that's the word used. It means a terrible whirlpool. He says devotees, they should avoid the whirlpools of this, just like this Daksha Yajna, all this various controversies, and concentrate on the essence. Of course, to get to the essence, we may have to go through so many difficulties. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he heard from the temple of Jagannath, Gita Govinda being sung very sweetly, and he ran to embrace the singer. He was oblivious to the fact that he was running through a patch of thorn trees. So like this, to reach the essence, we may have to go through so many thorns. This Shri Bhakti Marga, Iha Kantaka Koti Ruddha. In this world, the path of bhakti is strewn with millions of thorns. So we may have to go through so many or over so many thorns to reach the essence. But then we shouldn't think our only business is cutting thorn trees. It's not the only purpose. Or getting free from material existence. That is required to get free from material desires, to get free from material entanglement. But the essence, to find Krishna, that should be kept in mind. So it's very useful to read the Bhagavatam with Srila Prabhupada's purports, because just like we can go through this whole Daksha Yajna story, and it doesn't seem to be very much about Krishna. Where's Krishna? Prabhupada keeps us focused on Krishna. On the top, everything is to lead to Krishna. Prabhupada gives so many insights here on human nature. Human nature means various ways of being envious. They have the study of, there's this, what they call psychology. Psychology means the various ways people are being envious of each other. That's all. They're calculating their own self-interest. Not knowing nati vidu swartagating hi Vishnu, that our self-interest is served by not even thinking about it. Just thinking, how can I serve Vishnu? As long as I'm thinking, what's good for me, what will be, always calculate. It's the same mentality. Calculate. What's good for me? I think this is good for me. I should do this, I should do that. Even in devotional service, we're always thinking, how I'll make the situation better for me, not understanding that if we simply surrender ourselves fully in Krishna's service, then our self-interest is fully served by that, even though it may not appear like that. Several times, Prabhupada, he kept pushing his disciples to remain in their service, even though they didn't want to at all. Many times it happened, especially in India. Prabhupada, his personal secretary, wanted to leave. Prabhupada said, I'm not chanting my rounds, I'm so busy. I don't think he was so busy, he could have chanted also. But Prabhupada wanted him to stay. He said, even if you're not chanting your rounds, I will maintain your spiritual life. Prabhupada wanted to keep him in his service because he was very efficient. He was very helpful to Prabhupada. But he went away. And then he stopped chanting 16 rounds anyway, after he'd gone away, because actually he didn't have a taste for that. He wasn't cultivating that. But Prabhupada said, I'll maintain your spiritual life. But he didn't take that offer of Prabhupada. He didn't take that up. So, that principle, just like Krishna Kirtan Prabhu was asked me the other day about what's the essence of spiritual life? What was that? What was that? Chanting? What was it? Living in the Dham? There's none of these things. Not even chanting. You can chant for your own pleasure also. So that chanting, that won't help us very much. But the essence is the unmotivated desire to serve Krishna. That's the essence. Everything else, that's of course, pure Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishwasvaram, these are all non-different from that. But that attitude has to be there. Otherwise we can do hearing and chanting and psychological adjustments and so many different things we can do for millions of lives, but we'll never come to the point. Bahujanma kare jadi shravan kirtan tabuta napai Krishna pade prem dham. We'll never get to the point of Krishna prem, even after many lifetimes of hearing and chanting about Krishna, if we don't have this attitude of selfless service. So, what is the technique? What's the way we can chant Hare Krishna? Do we have to do sitting with our back straight, or count how many breaths we do while we're chanting? It's got nothing to do with it. It's Prabhupada said, the chanting should be, what is the technique? Just like the child calling for the mother. That's the technique. So Prabhupada with his purports keeps us focused on this. It's very important to read with the purport. Otherwise we won't understand anything. We'll definitely misunderstand. We may become more confused if we don't read without the purport, without reading the purport. We may become more confused. How is it these great demigods are all fighting amongst each other? There's so many questions. This Jai Krishna was asking. Indra, he's a womanizer. And what to speak of who can understand the story of Mohini Murti without purports? It's inconceivable. It's wild. Yeah, any question about this? Yeah.
So much how to develop that attitude.
How to develop the attitude of service? Well, hearing and associating. Associate with devotees who have that attitude. It's infectious. And hearing, but the thing is, in the beginning that desire must be there. If it's not there, then we can take to the process of Krishna consciousness, but it might be like rowing the boat with it's still tied up to the shore. You're doing all the techniques. That's why you see, sometimes we may see some Babaji, they're following rules very strictly and they're very austere and this and that. But still, Prabhupada, he criticized the Babaji class. Of course, he particularly criticized those who are smoking and this and that. I was told one of my godbrothers who went to live as a Radha Kunda Babaji for some time, he came back to ISKCON after some time and he said, I don't know about now, but he said at that time in the whole of Radha Kunda there were only 2 Babajis who weren't smoking. They were both ex-Gauriya Math people. That's what he said. So, but even if they are living a very austere life, but still Prabhupada would criticize. He said, we don't want Babaji class. Prabhupada wanted people who would serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada detected a fault there. That they're only it's the same thing that Prahlad Maharaj said. That, what is that? Naivod Vijay Paradaryatya Vaitaranyascha Viryadayam Mahamritam Magna Chitam So Chaitato Vimukha Chaitas Indriyatam Maya Sukaya Paramadvahato Vimudha. He said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm fine. I'm chanting your name, I'm very happy with that, but I'm lamenting seeing the condition of the foolish persons who are looking for happiness where there isn't any, in the world of illusion. He's looking for sense gratification. So Prabhupada, of course, he's actually on the platform of compassion. We talk about, here talk about compassion, but compassion, actually, there can be compassion when you're on the platform of being somewhat advanced. Daya is for one who is higher can give something to someone lower. So, compassion, that's particularly for the great pure devotees who are actually situated in Krishna consciousness. And they feel sorry for seeing others. But Prabhupada was pushing us. You do something for the cause of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to relieve the anxiety of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing everyone suffering in this material world. So, we're all fortunate that we've come to the shelter of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. So, but that we shouldn't be complacent. You go and Prabhupada says, you chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regulated principles, you'll go back to Godhead. He said that. So, alright, we can do that. But what about everyone else? If you're actually grateful to Prabhupada, then as Prabhupada said, if you feel grateful toward me, then you should preach vigorously like me. You should do something to serve his mission. So, that service attitude, it's not just something theoretical, but there's something, we have very practical work to do in serving the mission of the acharyas, preaching mission. And every area of Krishna consciousness we should see. It's not that we just preach and we neglect everything else. We have to see how the temple is maintained, the deities are being served nicely, all these things we have to see. Yeah, anything else?
In the beginning you said the misdirected religious rituals, that Shagyan, because it was misdirected, it ended up in the
Yeah, the yagya should be performed for the satisfaction of Vishnu. But these karmakandya rituals, they're done for the satisfaction of Vishnu is done they treat Vishnu as someone like themselves. Just like if a minister comes, you treat him someone like yourself, but a bit higher, so he can help you out. So they treat Vishnu like that. That, okay, I'll offer something to you, and you give something back to me. So their attitude is diseased. Wrong attitude.
So that can we compare like our own mind, our own society, that calamity is because of misdirected, because of
our own mind and our own society. They're two different things, aren't they?
two different things.
Yeah, well, that's the implication of what I said, that all problems are caused by Vismriti Krishna Padara Vindayoho, by forgetting the lotus feet of Krishna. And by not forgetting Avismriti Krishna Padara Vindayoho, Shinotya Bhadrani Cha Shantanoti. Then all the abhadra, all the inauspicious things are reduced and destroyed, and all auspiciousness is created. So all problems come from forgetfulness of Krishna. That the Yajna is there with offering to Krishna, but somehow they manage to forget Krishna in the middle of all that. Because their basic attitude is like that, to forget Krishna. So they're not doing it directly for his pleasure. We can do that also. We can ostensibly be doing service for Krishna, but forgetting Krishna. We can be offering the arati and thinking about chanting the Hari names and thinking about something completely different. That's why we find many Vaishnava songs and prayers, they're addressed to the mind. Bhaja Hure Mana, Shri Nanda. E Mon, Harinam Karosha. O mind, make the Harinam the essence. So now we've all become Vaishnavas with nice tilak and neck beads, but we should also give initiation to our minds. Make our minds into Vaishnavas. Anything else? Yeah.
Very much. That you should to develop attitude, association and feeling.
Yeah.
And then you say, but the desire must be in the beginning itself.
Yeah. Otherwise you see people, they may be years and years closely associating with advanced devotees, but they actually maintain a materialistic outlook. That is seen sometimes. You never really get the essence. They might even talk, give good classes about being free from personal desires and this, but you see in their life how they live, how they interact with other people. Some personal motive is there.
This is one more technical question about we understand that previously people were doing yagyas, kings, and to please demigods, and demigods will give rain. And nowadays we get also rain. Maybe not so much, but how is it that
rain is coming? There's so much rain now with this complete rascal as the chief minister. But it's actually a symptom of the irregularity of the weather. There shouldn't be rain at all at this time. And you might get rain and sun and all these, but if it's not in a regular way, then it actually messes up the whole ecosystem. But it's not just a matter of getting rain, but you have to get it at the right time and in the right amount. So, if you get rain just the day before the rice is about to be harvested, then the whole crop is spoiled. That happens sometimes. Otherwise, the weather was very predictable. There would be. That's why. Otherwise, you can't grow rice, for instance, if the weather is irregular, because it has to become ripe and then dry and then then you cut it. But if the rain comes in between, then everything's finished. You can't properly do any agriculture if everything's all irregular. There should be a time for sun, there should be a time for rain, and then it's the plants know it too. So they grow nicely like that. If it's warm in the winter and then hot cold in the summer, then there'll be no agriculture, no proper crops.
You say that whatever we are getting today, all over the world, people are sinful, but still they're getting grains,
they're getting grains and this and that.
Previous, something else, but still then go supplying.
Well, the Bhagavan gives food. By his arrangement, even the big demons get food. So, just like in the prison, they arrange for your food also. Otherwise they could just kill you, and then the punishment would be over for that lifetime. But if they put you in prison, then they have to feed you also. So Bhagavan, he's not obliged to feed us, but he does. Exactly what results we're getting, it's too complex to exactly ascertain, because at every moment we're creating. From the age of consciousness in a human body, as soon as we start to become conscious and aware, then, or after childhood, once we have an idea once we get beyond the Annamaya platform and we become aware of others, then we start accruing karmic reactions at every moment. And it's very, very complex. So, Chitragupta, he knows. And all the demigods, they work it out between themselves. Karmana daiva netrena jantur deho papattaya. The demigods, they take the account and then they find a place to put someone. It's very complex. But it's connected. Everything if there's some serious problem, then a good astrologer, he may be able to say what's the cause of that from previous life. I was reading someone's chart, this Brigu Hora, and he was saying that you have so many problems with rheumatism and digestion and this and that. And he gave the reason for that, because in a previous life, so I think he misplaced the trust of a benefactor, something like that. So this is the reason you're getting this reaction. And he said you'll get a higher destination after death. He didn't say you get liberated. So that was the main cause of his health problems, was that he had done something wrong in a previous life. Health problems are normal nowadays. Everyone has health problems. Everyone's born with burden of sinful activities from previous life. It's Kali Yuga. All the sinful people get born. All the Indian people want to go to the West. We should show them these specimens. All our Sikh devotees from the West. It's not so. Of course, we show them Krishna Kirtan, they'll think he's very healthy, but his time will come also. I don't think you're going to be healthy all your life. So, one more question.
When you completely engage in services, naturally the mind always contemplates on what to do on that particular thing.
Yeah,
so,
don't I know it?
That's
why I couldn't sleep at night.
So how do we So that's kind of apparently seems like a disturbance, or
to always think of the service and not think of Krishna, you mean?
Not like when we chant or when we read or when
You're always
we
thinking of the
discuss.
pressure of service. I've got this to do and that to do. It's very good to have lots of service to do. Then we can't think of nonsense. Well, Prabhupada writes in the purport in Bhagavad-gita that in the beginning in devotional service, the devotee takes pleasure in the service itself, and later he's directly in a relationship with Krishna. So, yeah, we should go on with our services and go on with hearing and chanting and remembering that, and then gradually the consciousness will come that this is for Krishna. That should be there. That must be there. Otherwise it won't really be service. If we're just doing it, well, I have to wash the pots because someone told me, really, I'm doing it for Krishna. It's for Krishna. I'm doing it nicely. Krishna will be pleased. I want to please Krishna, so I want to do it as nicely as I can. This must be done nicely for Krishna. So that consciousness, Prabhupada says again in another purport, that when one goes to distribute books or enroll a life member, he's remembering that he must think of Krishna because he's doing this for Krishna. So gradually that consciousness